What up, Fuego?
What's up, my man?
Hey, you want to review some comics today?
I always do. What were you thinking?
Well, that's easy. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And Fuego here.
Here to do another comic book review, but
Yes.
this one, you guys, is one that I guess you could say is a long time coming, because what we are going to be talking about is the first, I guess you could say, technically 7 issues of Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, because
So-
there's a little free comic booky D.
Indeed. This whole series started with this right here, this free comic book day issue that even has at the end of it a bit that says, by the way, when the series proper starts, some of these characters might be dead, so things are going to change. And then
they were funny about it.
yeah, lo and behold, in the very first Umbrella Academy miniseries, 1 through 6 right here, Apocalypse Suite,
Yeah.
that is just one of the things that that played at it. But the reason we wanted to do these comics, you guys, is because
You know
obviously
why.
it's very appropriate for the timing. The Netflix show just came out. We did review the whole series, the first season, so that is either going to go up right after this review or right before this review. So in either case, stay tuned to the channel and you'll see both of them pop up. But
Yes.
now, I read these books. Obviously, I have these books, so I bought them when they first came out in 2009. And Fuego had never read them before. However, he has a deeper appreciation of the driving creative force behind it, by the name of Mr. Gerard Way.
Exactly.
There.
Former
It is
front
drawn
man.
by Gabriel Ba, but it is written by Gerard Way and created by Gerard Way. So who is that, Fuego?
Yeah, former frontman of none other than My Chemical Romance, one of my absolute favorite bands of all time, and I just always loved the fact that him as a singer was notorious for taking an approach where he wanted to conceptualize and make these concept albums, and each of these punk goth horror records that he put together told a story, and the most notorious being The Black Parade. And from what he has said in interviews, that when he started working on this and it began releasing in 2007 and 2008 and stuff, it was really his self.
I kept saying 2009. You're right. It was 2007.
His self-reflection and just him dealing with the fame that they suddenly had as a band, and how he put a lot of his interaction with his bandmates into the dysfunctionality of this family, this adopted family of, talented kids that grow to be adults and have to reconvene and everything. It still really makes me hold out hope that, hey, even if it's 12 years or whatever the hell it may be, that MCR eventually gets together at some point. But I'm very guilty for this not being read by me in its entirety when it initially came out, because of the fact that I checked a bit of it and I wasn't over the moon. I will admit, but I'm really happy that I gave it a revisit with the TV series coming out, and I can really see many more of the merits. And yes, it's very anti-superhero in a lot of ways, and it can
very anti-superhero, but still very much more
Reverence,
superhero-y than
the TV
otherwise.
show. Yeah.
So I'm just going to cycle through the covers real quick.
Oh,
That
the
was
covers are
issue
great.
number 1. This is issue number 2. And as you can see, it's the designs are a little bit different. And so
little bit.
we get a little bit of who everyone is on some of these, and some of the things, because some of it takes place at a amusement park. This is our first glimpse at the white violin.
Ooh, that plays in heavily.
Plays in very heavily. And then this is issue number 5, of
The
course,
monocle.
featuring number 5 naturally, as well as Rumor and Luther. Rumor, of course, is not black in the series, but they did make her so.
And even Diego, despite being named Diego, he's
very white. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is the 6th issue there. So this is the actual originating comic book series that the TV show is based on. Now, the first thing we have to say, Fuego, is that it's different because it has to be. This is 6 issues, and that is a 10-episode series. And even if
Each
you
episode
took
about
one
an hour.
even if you did one episode per issue, you still would fall short. And so it's a much denser story in the Netflix series, and I think they expanded on all the right things, to be honest with you.
Truly do.
So I really enjoyed it, but we are here to focus on the actual comic books. So,
Yes.
Fuego. Everyone can obviously ascertain that I loved the comic book series because I bought them. I have the next series as well as the third series. So I am on board for this from get-go, but what are your thoughts? And especially having read it after watching the show.
And I did that very deliberately. I did not want to read and then watch, because even with novels proper adapted to TV series and films and things of that nature, I feel like having that sort of connection when both of the examples exist at the same time, I really like a live action example, and then I'll go back and I'll check out source material. And I was really glad that I did that here, because I think that this does share a lot. I'm less familiar with like Doom Patrol and some of the Grant Morrison stuff that everybody tells me Gerard was like big time just worshiping at the foot of. But I could see the X-Men similarities. I could see the Miss Peregrine similarities and things of that nature. And so I enjoyed the fact that, much more so than the TV series, and I touch upon this briefly in our review over there, is the fact that this is much truer to form a superhero comic, especially with some of the antics and the craziness that goes down. It's very much one of the alluded to amusement park bit, another bit that happens at the Eiffel Tower early in the series. It's very much a superhero team caper kind of thing, and they hint at the dysfunctionality, especially that has happened over the years of the team disbanding, and then when they have to reconvene with the death of a loved one. I feel like they go into much deeper detail with, I guess, just the human emotion of dealing with having those sort of superpowers on the television series. They touch on some of the themes here, but it's really just about laying the groundwork for that expanse. And I must say, the comic book day one shot it felt like almost TV game show style, and it almost felt like The Incredibles to me.
Okay.
In some ways, in the fact that was just very much about, there's the villains on the game show boasting about the killing of one particular character.
That was pretty hilarious.
And no, it was fun. I love The Incredibles.
Yeah.
I'm not talking smack or anything. I'm just giving the vibe that I got from it, and I'm not sure if The Incredibles came before or after the original Incredibles being, and the original run of the Umbrella Academy being, but I really, really liked it, and the art style, especially from Gabriel, I thought was really cool. And they do start out very, like, almost identically,
except for the origin of the species, which in the comic book, the entire event of the 43 women that get pregnant is set off by this wrestler doing a body slam on a space squid.
Yeah, which
so they changed that for the show, which I think with good reason.
Well, and they also make up straight connotations that the father, Monocle,
they say right at the beginning
he's an alien himself.
Well, yeah, but they show that in the series too.
They hint at it.
Yeah, no, that one flashback of him and his wife sending something off into the space. That was them on their originating planet. That was him as the space alien.
Okay.
So that was the bit that they showed. They just barely alluded to it one time in the whole series.
Kind of thing. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
But they show that on page 3 that he's an alien.
Well, I also like the fact that they took kind of the Alan Moore approach of sorts at times, where, like at the beginning of this, they have these journal entries that don't have any corresponding illustrations, from Monocle and from Pogo, is that his name?
Pogo, yeah.
Pogo, yeah. And they have observations from him, and they usually go from all of the 7 one by one, and they honestly did it the weirdest, in my opinion, in the one shot. The way they described everybody, it's this weird, broken, improper vernacular. I almost want to read a few of them. Where's the one shot at?
Well, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
It's really funny. But, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
seek out the one shot if you can. It's stuff like, blah, 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 so hot, Dracula, exclamation point, just things like that. And you're like, yeah, this feels very Gerard and the type of creativity that he was going for. with the Black Parade, and then even later with Danger Days. And I get vibes of Danger Days on the TV series with the time cops going after them and stuff. And
see, and it shows their early exploits as the Umbrella Academy right here,
which they only graze over, and the utter fandom that transpired from the comic books to the action figures to the public appearances, that's what they also expanded upon for the television series.
Well, not only that, but this whole thing as Space Boy
Yeah, where he's on the moon.
in his suit, in his monkey suit, that's on Front Street. He's in that thing all the time, and it's barely revealed as like a thing in the show halfway through. So,
well, and also how it transpired.
So,
Yeah,
but the reason I keep showing the
with
artwork is so you guys can see sort of the style that Gabriel Ba has.
It's very specific and very distinctive and deliberately different than most of the hyper-realistic stuff you get in superhero comics.
Indeed. Now, how did the story play out for you in comic form? Obviously, we're going to try and do a separate video where we compare the comic and the show specifically. So, what did you think of the story just by itself in comic form?
You know, that's probably the tough aspect of watching something with the TV series where they went into so much detail about certain character motivations and things like that, which they just gloss over here, you know, which is like, you know, Starboy and the Rumor and their attraction to each other, and also Seance and the extent of his powers and things of that nature. Also, what happened to the horror? They don't really give much information whatsoever about what happened there. So it still hits most of the same beats though, and without going into complete insane spoiler territory, they all reconvene at the mansion that they were raised because of the fact that their father has died abruptly, and it turns into a conduit for not only them to rebond and, you know, try to figure some things out, but also for a old supervillain who hated their guts to have
Dr. Terminal or
yeah,
whatever.
to have a terminus, whatever the heck. But he had pre-programmed these like little floating sentry box robot, whatever the heck you want to call them, to be unleashed if they ever got within a certain proximity of one another again. The entire team, which they do, and so they are unleashed on this theme park. And I loved at the end of that issue, after that fight, where they had a body count of all the different, not just casualties, but injuries, and it was just a very brief statistic giving the full explanation of the horrors that transpired, even if it is kind of happy-go-lucky at times, and it's more, you know, jovial and lighthearted, whatever. It's like it's those little reminders with the journal entries, like I talked about, with statistics like that make it feel to me like when comics were turning the tide and becoming so much more realistic in the 80s, and stuff like Watchmen. And so,
here you get a little bit of Vanya showing what she can do on the violin and being recruited by the man known as the Conductor and his
one of the biggest differences,
Orchestra of Death. So that's sort of a big difference, but that's the major underlying plot going on, is Vanya feeling dejected from the family, going into the arms of another more evil personality. So,
but there's some stuff that happens to her very quickly that sets the plot points in motion for the back half of the miniseries, and they do kind of glaze over them in comparison with what we get to see in the miniseries, and so maybe for that I was a little less impressed, but I mean, once again, laying groundwork, and that's really what this did. Gerard was doing some serious universe building with these characters, and it's unfortunate, in my opinion, that it's taken him 10 years to return to them, because the second series came out immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
And then big break while he's working on it.
That one I think did come out in 2009. I think season 2 did.
It came out right afterwards, like the very following year, and then he started working on all of these other properties like DC. Like he started writing Doom Patrol himself, you know, Gerard, and that's a big coup right now for the DC. DC All Access streaming, whatever is right now. Turkey.
Not chicken coop. You mean coup? That was a coup for them.
Yeah.
Yes. Remember?
Now I do.
So, all right. This is... I'm trying to kind of skip ahead and see if there's anything that's worth not spoiling for you guys, but
No, as you go
the
issue by
storytelling is just really well done. It
is.
is much more superheroic than the TV show, but it also
That stuff I
dives
liked,
into
yeah.
some of the other stuff where you get to see some of them as a kid, including Vanya, and you know how she developed her relationship with Pogo and stuff like that. Like, it really makes you sad when you know ultimately where things end up with this. I mean,
I
great
loved
storytelling.
I love Gerard's way where he would Gerard's
Gerard's
way.
way.
That's a
nice.
hashtag.
Nice.
Gerard's way. I just love the fact that he would give like a page or two, and then he would jump into that full double splash with a huge cool title like "Baby, I'm Your Frankenstein," or for the one shot it was "But the past ain't through with you," you know, which is taken directly from "Kill All Your Friends," a B-side from Black Parade, and so I almost went immediately and started reading the God Save the President right after I finished this, but I just didn't have time. Had to come out and get right to the filmings today and stuff, but I wanted to just get right to it, and I'm very excited that he is planning another back-to-back. So he is actually kind of, despite taking a 10-year break, he is doing the similar approach where he put out two limited series right next to each other. And where will all these characters be? What will have changed? Will there have been another time lapse that's gone down?
Honestly, the spike in interest has to be huge at this point. It's going to help it significantly. I'm definitely trusting that to be the case. I mean, I'm just trying to show kind of random pages that show what happened in the comic, and you can kind of see what's going on. So number 5 is still dealing with the consequences of coming back early. You know, he's talking to Pogo, who's trying to convince him for common sense and things like that.
Who I feel like in some ways has a slightly larger role in the comic, maybe, or at least
Pogo?
or at least you see him a little bit more so. But yeah, they just implement him in different ways.
See, I can't show that.
Yeah, no, you can't. That's big time, and that's the
the
bit
moment
that
we were
shocked me. I was just like, oh my goodness. And there are a lot of the same beats and story points. I still love the fact that Seven was so just aggravated and upset by the fact that she, you know, was relegated away, segregated, didn't have the same powers, presumably.
Vanya.
Yes, exactly, aka Vanya. And wrote that book, which is the one thing I don't think we touched upon the extraordinary book when we were discussing. She incurred the ire of the rest of the family by writing some very, very mean things about them in a book, and it got her in the public eye for a while at one point, but subsided quickly in both the comic book and in the TV series. And you know, they handle her character differently. I think more differently than any of the others in the comic book.
Well, but I like what they do though, and I especially like how they get across everything that's going on, as far as, you know, the music surrounding them in a big sound cacophony, and then you know, they have to try and stop Vanya from going nuts, and then there's even more to it than you think. I mean, it gets handled, you know what I mean? In a way that it's not handled in the series, and I don't want to show it terribly long because of that, but
well, it's a totally different there is the same end game to some degree, but the means in which it comes about is different.
Right there.
You know, and the fact that the Apocalypse Suite has such a musical resonance and significance. Not that music doesn't play a big part in the TV series, but I feel like as far as the music being an aspect of how the end game can transpire, I was really stoked when she is first proposed the idea from them when they show up and they're talking about it's almost like the horror equivalent of the brown noise on the South Park episode, where they're like, yeah, this is that particular tone, it'll make everybody crap and die. And it's like, what if there was a particular pitch, chord progression, whatever, that could just, you know, set in motion the end of the world and cause annihilation. And I thought that was such a cool idea.
The way they do sound as a weapon is so dope, and it's exactly what I was hoping for.
And I also love the way Seance brought along all of these, and he posed as another for the distraction aspect, and I thought that was it's still a really cool finale in the comic book, even if it's different than what you see. There's enough
They're
similarities.
focused more on his levitation and hovering in the comic than they are in the show. He doesn't do that in the show, but that's all he does in the comic.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out if they ever even mention him as being named Klaus in the comic. I don't remember.
Maybe so.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah,
it was
I'm sure
not mentioned like a lot, like you saw with Allison and like
Right.
you saw with Luther and others. But once again, that's another thing. They weigh very heavily on their alter identity names and stuff, despite the fact that all they're wearing is these little maskies.
Yeah.
They still mention terms like Starboy and Rumor and Seance and so on, like much more so than you see. It's more like an Easter egg kind of thing on the TV series instead. So.
Now, what did you think of the artwork? I mean, especially, we won't directly compare it to the TV show, but how did you feel like the artwork melded with the story?
It had more.
Gabriel Ba.
Well, yeah, yes, Gabriel Ba. You know, it had sensibilities of whimsy a little bit, but they did counterbalance it with the fact that they do go gory, really, in a few scenes in particular, like the one that we didn't want to show to the audiences and whatnot. So it is more violent, and I think when you have that ultra violence of the cartoon degree, and that's the thing, you know, I'm not surprised about having this sort of tone with the presentation of the artwork, you know, having that graphic nature, because of the fact that, you know, Gerard worked on Adult Swim, and he was doing lots of work there before 9/11 transpired, and that was what set in motion him deciding, you know, I think I want to go out and sing songs and make a band to try to change the world, as opposed to just working on funny books and stuff like that. But after he felt, and the rest of the members as well, that the band had come full circle and that they'd accomplished as much, and they didn't want to, you know, just fade away, and they're like, let's just call it quits, let's go do our own things. And he did the Something Alien. It was more very, I'm not sure if you've heard any of his solo stuff, but you know, it's Something the Alien. Anyway, it's synth driven, it's very different, and it's more akin to what we've seen from him on both helping score at times the TV series and from a few of his more recent solo work. So it makes sense. Hey, he had a background. He had a background with this sort of approach previously, and the visual representation from Gabriel really it heightens his eccentricities, I guess, and that sort of nature for me. So yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know. Is there anything else we can share about it that's not going to ruin it? I mean, they focus on some things in the comic that they leave as mysteries until halfway through in the show, so I don't necessarily want to hit on many of those, but
and there's also stuff that don't show up until the second series that I have already seen on the TV show.
That's true.
So.
Hazel and Cha-Cha. I actually thought they were from series 1, but I was mistaken. I watched them both, or read them both before I watched the series, and it blended together enough that I forgot they were from the second series, as well as the JFK storyline that they barely hinted at in this one. So there's a lot of really cool stuff to look forward to. I mean, does that mean that you're excited to read the second comic series and watch the second series of the TV show, or one more so than the other, or what's the deal?
I mean, I'm excited for both, obviously, and since I already have a second run accessible and a third run, that's where I wonder what we should do. If I should just read the third run right away too, or if I should. Well,
I need to read it first. I'm waiting for the 6th issue to come out.
Yeah,
and then we'll read
or if I should give it some time and let it simmer and wait until the second, because that would entail being ahead of the curve as opposed to catching up with some of the.
That's true.
And I've done that before with various other series.
Yeah,
I know, because the audience is there.
And we're OCD, but
and we'll be
it'll just pick up more
so,
later on, so.
Yeah. Well, I guess we have to do that. What is the third series called again? Do you happen to recall?
The third one is Hotel Oblivion. The first one is Apocalypse Suite. The second one is Dallas. And the third one is Hotel Oblivion.
Okay.
So I don't know anything beyond that, but I'm excited to read it. I have the first 5 of the 6-issue series now, because the 6th hasn't come out yet, but soon enough I'm sure it will.
Well, obviously I have a theory what they will be exploring in the Dallas bed.
Yep.
Something that they hint, because they go into so much deeper detail about what number 5 did when he was bouncing around in time, and one of which was what I'm assuming this second thing could revisit and maybe change.
I'm not going to tell you. So, it's worth your time to seek these out, you guys. I don't even know if you can get your hands on the first volume. I imagine they're going to do a reprinting very soon.
They would have to, because the
Netflix
paperbacks
label
that I was looking at were going for a little more than I wanted to pay when I almost bought it a week or so ago.
How much were they going for?
Around $20, but the hardcovers were going for like ridiculous amounts of money, and there's so many. I
wonder, what do the original issues go for?
The original issues that were going for a lot of money were the alternate covers, because apparently they did a shitload of alternate covers and Comic-Con exclusive covers and things like that. Those are the ones that...
Well, whatever. So this isn't worth crap, in other words.
They fetch in the hundreds.
Let's just burn them.
Yeah.
Let's burn them all.
Is it a witch? Way back.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for our review of Umbrella Academy Apocalypse Suite, the first volume of the comic book series.
Sweet.
We will be back to review Dallas, and then probably soon after we'll be back to review Hotel Oblivion. Ooh, and then we'll be caught up until the 4th series. So we're excited to do this. This comic book series was phenomenal and well worth your time if you can find it. Until then, though, thank you very much for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, I've been Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.